We've seen a lot of different members from the MMA community. I will say it seems to be a fraction of the MMA community, but it's enough that I'm seeing online that I thought it was worth bringing up for a video. Your favorite fighters are probably conservative. Since the election, a lot of fighters have been posting about their support for one certain side, and I do, you know what, guys, and I know I'm going to hear about it in the comments. I know I'm going to hear about it. I'm being careful for YouTube. Of course, I'm going to speak about that side. They treat it like it's Voldemort, and if anything ever happens, I want to ensure my safety over here on this platform, and it's very, very important that while I'm speaking about this, because this is a touchy subject, I ask that you don't assume anything about myself. You have no idea about anything about my political beliefs. I've never spoken them. I've never made them public. So I ask that you have that respect for me in the comment section down below. Let's get a little bit more into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channels. Let me bring you over to one example that actually, this is the one that really made me say, okay, you know what? I'm going to make a video about this. It was Dan Ige posting on Twitter just with the hat and sipping on probably what is coffee. Actually, I think Dan Ige is a coffee enjoyer. Regardless, it doesn't matter what he's drinking. So you have fighters posting things like this. You have fighters talking about the election in general, especially when it was going on. And of course, a lot of the MMA fan base themselves are conservative, but you have so many people as if they're so shocked that somebody like Dan Ige is a conservative. It happens with like Kamaru Usman. It happened with so many fighters this time. Wow, to think I respected you. Well, time to unfollow. Like, first of all, as if they're doing something, but it's just shocking to me that people think otherwise. If you were to assume one way about somebody who is involved in MMA, especially somebody who is a UFC fighter, why would the first thought not be, okay, this guy's probably a conservative? And to even further my point, I thought it'd be a little bit more fun to kind of dive into maybe why fighters would be conservative, because, and there's no particular reason. I have a couple listed over my other monitor here because I wanted to remember exactly what I'm talking about. But one of the points being, and again, in no particular order, like, fighters are so self-reliant. They are focused on self-improvement. They're healthy, you know. I mean, the vast majority of fighters seem to be healthy. They're about discipline, accountability. They're just about improving people in general. They're about improving society. They're about, like, the martial arts values kind of just, it improves one's self-worth and makes people into just better people. All of these kind of traits like self-improvement, fitness, they're all found in some sort of conservative ideology. That's probably, you know, this is definitely one of the biggest ones for me. And so many people, like, they take the careers into their own hands. They do everything they can to make money. They are literally, so many fighters, Dan Ige being one of them. And I don't mean to just point out Dan Ige. Again, there's so many fighters that posted about the election results and all falling through the same kind of way, right? But it's all about self-reliance, taking care of your family, being the man of the house. I'm fighting for my family. How many times have you heard about that? I'm fighting for my family. What kind of ideology supports something like that? Of course, it's a conservative ideology. Fighters want to maintain control over their own careers. They talk about things like lower taxes. They want to make as much money as possible. A lot of fighters look at themselves as entrepreneurs. A lot of fighters look at themselves like they're marketing themselves as their own business. This is something that's conservative. And what about patriotism? No matter what side, like, no matter where you're coming from, people walking out the flags. How many fighters do you know that sit down and they're like, I'm fighting to represent my country right now, no matter where they come from? National pride is a huge thing in MMA. What side is national pride associated with? What side of the aisle are the ones to kind of walk out with their flags all hyped up, like screaming, getting ready to defend their honors, defend their country? They're walking out with their flag no matter where they're from again, and want to actively represent where they come from. There's only one side that would want to do that. A lot of fighters are skeptical of big government. A lot of fighters have come from a blue-collar upbringing. A lot of fighters came through lots of hardships and had to actively work for themselves and market themselves to get out of there. A lot of fighters are literally fighting for their life. And if you want to talk about one of the biggest ones, fighters are often very, very religious. Again, no matter where you're coming from, like, if you want to talk about, like, again, you can literally dive into it from whether you want to talk about Christian, Muslim beliefs, it doesn't really matter. Oftentimes, if somebody is more on the religious side, they fall on one side of the aisle. And here's another really, really big one. Honestly, how many fighters do you know that are in support of, if you're speaking about the US, of course, are in support of the Second Amendment, right? What Would you assume that somebody would be against that if their whole life is literally fighting to defend themselves? If they're learning to defend themselves in the streets, if they're learning to defend their family, if they're learning to fight in order to, I guess, defend their family from something like homelessness, why wouldn't they be in support of something like the Second Amendment? And who is in support of something like the Second Amendment? Conservatives. So many fighters also have a huge family-oriented mindset. There has been a huge attack on the nuclear family in general. And what fighter do you know? At least I honestly can't think of any. What fighter do you know that is in support of destroying or having any sort of destructive tendencies within the nuclear family? So many fighters are so reliant on their relationship with their family. I don't think reliant is the right word for it, but it is. I mean to point out that it's like so near and dear to their heart. Family values are important to them. Protecting the children are upon them. Support for anybody who is also, and on the ultimate respect for anybody else who is in this sport to fight to get money, to feed their kids, to feed their wife, to have their family. So many fighters understand what it's like. So many fighters hold that near and dear to their heart. If you want to talk about an attack on children, if you want to talk about an attack on the nuclear family, fighters, and not even just about their core family, which is such an important aspect of it. Fighters build family within each other. Fighters have so much respect for each other. Fighters understand the people and what they're doing and build a community around it. Do you go to any other martial arts gym? That is nothing like any other sport. Any other sport. You know, you talk about the bond people playing football, the bond people get from like a basketball team. There is nothing like the bond that people get from doing martial arts, self-improving, living as happily and healthy as you possibly can, and the respect that you have in combat, the understanding that you have for each other and their bodies. There is a family bonding experience like none other. There are a lot of fighters that talk about their team being their family. Family is important to them, and then they also have their core family that they're doing their best to take care of. This is something that is found in conservative ideology. And I know I keep saying like, okay, well, this might be the actual biggest point, but I think this is probably legitimately the biggest one. I don't know exactly what kind of culture to call it, but the culture about like self-improving, being healthy, lifting weights, looking good. I don't want to say macho culture. Like, that's not the right way to put it. You guys understand what I'm talking about? Like, bodybuilding isn't the right way to put it, but just being manly. A lot of fighters, the vast majority of them, are extremely, extremely manly. Toughness is respected. Grit is respected. Heart is respected. All of these things come from, I want to say conservative beliefs. I know they don't exactly come out of conservative beliefs, but having a conservative belief definitely has influence on that. Being self-responsible. Being, again, the man of your house, trying to defend, and if you, like, whether or not you want to take martial arts to just defend yourself or defend your family, if God forbid something happen, or if you want to just make a career out of it yourself. All of this type of culture, and again, I have a hard time talking about what kind of culture that is. I don't know if there's a name for it. Comment down below if you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, obviously you know what I'm talking about. Just being manly. No matter what your political beliefs are. You look at two sides of the aisle, right? One's manly and one's not, okay? If you want to take a look and follow a bunch of people that are super, super manly, there is only one way that I would kind of describe those people to be. Look, my entire point throughout this video, guys, is it's just shocking to me because I don't know if you guys have been following it, but I personally followed the election really, really closely, and I am very involved in the martial arts space. It is not shocking to me that all of these fighters have the same political beliefs. I don't get it. Dan Ige, Kamaru Usman was a huge one too. And to think I respected you. Like, people write stuff like that as if they're doing anything. Like, okay, dude, like, you think Dan Ige is going to look at that and just go, oh man, what am I going to do without him? What am I going to do without him as a fan? And first of all, you can get into the whole conversation of like, it's just an adult thing, man. I don't know why people can't be friends anymore. This is something that I talked about on another channel. And this is why I keep these opinions of mine so to myself. I have friends that are on the complete 100% opposite side of the aisle to me. And that is A-okay. Obviously, there's a line. Obviously, there's a line where people believe like, and that's such a minority of the amount of the people on one side of the political spectrum that it doesn't even matter. Like, there is a line where I'd be like, okay, you know what? It's totally fair to hate that person, you know? But just for like political beliefs, supporting somebody, I don't understand why it's been so publicized. My dad told me ever since I was a kid to never discuss politics with anybody, and I've never done that. And look at me. Now I have friends on both sides of the aisle. I just don't, I don't speak to anybody. I'm not even coming to you from a channel that's like, that like arrogant centrist, you know, the ones that are acting like they're better than everybody. It's like, I don't fall on one side of the aisle either way. It's just stupid to talk about, you know, those types of people. I just don't get it. Seeing Danny Gay post that and seeing people say such condescending things to him, like, first of all, who are you? Secondly, how stupid could you possibly be to assume that Danny Gay might be on the left? And this is the overall problem with it too, is people have been so radicalized to the point of just believing what they read online that they look at Danny Gay, they look at a family man, they look at somebody who has stepped up on 2 hours notice for a couple, like, what was it, a couple fights ago, who has stepped up on like 2 hours notice to get into the octagon, not ready for a fight, to risk his body to make money for his family. And because he posted a hat, now you completely changed your tune on Danny Gay. I think what he's done is completely commendable. It's respectable. It's something that a lot of fighters would not have the balls to do what Danny Gay did, to risk his career, to risk his health, to risk his record. Danny Gay was on a roll to risk his body to protect his family. All of that is conservative ideology. Right? But no, Danny Gay posted a picture with a hat on. No, Danny Gay sucks. Danny Gay's hateful. Danny Gay probably hates his own kids. I'm sure that Danny Gay has to look at his kids in the eyes and say, I'm sorry, but everything else is more important than you. My vote is more important than you, kids. You know, that's how people view Danny Gay. Not obviously, again, it's a fraction of the MMA space. It's just shocking to me how people could think otherwise. Or maybe it's just Twitter, full of NPCs. Who knows? Speaking of Danny Gay, though, why don't you check out this video on screen? YouTube thinks that you like it the best over here. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.